With Infill Gear itself, with the title track, the drums coming in so hard, and I know I was always curious too about some of the different versions of the album, but at least
Right.
the Infill Gear starting the album and the drums being so pronounced and there being a lot of instrumentation before the raps even come in. What was that intentional? Did that just happen? Like,
That's the magic, the genius, the prowess. I could find 11 million more words of Prince Paul. I mean, that's just, man, when Paul played that for us, man, we lost our damn mind, man. Because Paul, man, first of all, he never gets enough credit as a producer, ever. Nobody can tell me that he does. But that swing, nobody was doing that like him.
yeah,
the way we
that was
made On
incredible.
Fire is he made the 808 double time and swing. Nobody was doing that. And that swing is pre-New Jack swing. And he had that swing and that shuffle down. And so when we heard it, it was crazy, but he's a DJ. So he put that Commodores in there. So he made the beat. He made the beat on that thing. He used to have that Casio RX-10. Mm-hmm. He made the beat on that Casio RX-10. But after the then he does the hut. And he did that with his hands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, most of the Stetsasonic records that Paul made and you hear it, like Bust That Groove and all that, he does that with his hands. And wax. You know what I'm saying? And when we heard it, it was like, what the hell? And it was just like, we felt so Earth, Wind, and Fire, so mandrill. Like, yeah, you know, we know y'all liked On Fire. You know, we know y'all got it. Y'all got a taste of us. Y'all got a taste of what we about. But when this record opens up with that, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm just going to come on. Let me start by saying, you want to leave? Go ahead. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm telling you, when Infill Gear, that's one of our, that's a joint right there.
That song's incredible. And we didn't even get to the bass yet. The bass line,
right.
The bass, which comes in after the drums.
That's him separate. Scratching and shifting gears.
Mm.
And that's why it's called Infill Gear.
Gotcha.
And what's Money's name? Gangster G. There's a version. You know what? You need to keep bugging Bobby Simmons or Prince Paul. There's a version of Infill Gear that's really long. Because that's Gangster G singing, and we're in full gear. Because we wanted to get, now he does scratch it, but there's a version of that with Gangster G going off at the end.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, and you know, that's the same kid that sang, this is for the Funk Box. And that's why we got him, because we had heard Funk Box.
Okay.
You know? Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. And with the music for the Stetfully Insane, I was always intrigued too, because as you know, there were a lot of instrumental records on albums at the time, but usually those had a lot of things being scratched in, or there were a lot of words. Right. That one really didn't have that. So creatively, why did you guys want to do it that way?
That's Paul as well, and that's Paul on the turntable. That's a Funkadelic record. That's a Bernie Worrell record. Later on, Paul would go on to work with Bernie.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a Bernie Worrell. So Paul programs the drums, and then he scratched in that's a Funkadelic record. On top of his drums. Those are turntable records.
That's incredible.
But now, here's the deal. Bobby wasn't around until the middle of On Fire. Bobby was already in the band when we did in full gear. The only reason he's not in the photos because he was not yet an official member. He was still technically work for hire, and the photos had already been shot. But Bobby brings a whole nother musical element to the band. And so that's when the expansion of doing interludes, fade outs that come back, all of that happened. Is when Bobby got in there. So yes, it was Paul's idea to do Stephanie's Insane, music for Stephanie's Insane, but it was also kind of like Bobby's influence as well. Because we was trying to, again, man, we're trying to make those records that are neck and neck with some of those Graham Central Station, Sly and the Family Stone albums that we had heard in the past.
And I think too, the thing I've always wondered about a lot of groups, generally speaking, that I thought you guys did a good job of is you have these resources like a live drummer. Why not use him?
Right, so, exactly.
Because there's always a lot of great, just using more obvious examples, but there's so many great DJs that were in groups that barely scratched or didn't do much, and it always baffled me. Whereas,
well, I think part of that is definitely that's just the Stetsasonic thing, right? You know, everybody that was in our band was kind of sort of handpicked. So it's also the way Paul entered into the band. We were looking for a DJ. And, you know, there's some interviews out there, Prince Paul will tell you, like when they first asked me to come over, I thought they was a gang. I thought they wanted to beat me up. You know, we were influenced by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. So at that time, Stetsasonic it's more of a, we were more than a group. It was more than the amount of members that ended up being. Like it was a few other cats that was down with us, just as entourage and stuff. And we used to wear the spikes and all of that. So we had the spikes and everything, and we're walking, you know what I'm saying? We're walking down you know, because in summer in Brooklyn, there's all these block parties. So we walking near the Brevoort projects. And I guess Brevoort is Bed-Stuy technically. Ocean Hill, Brownsville, kind of. Anyway, and, you know, the big Brevoort party is, you know, that's where, who's from Brevoort? Fabulous is from Brevoort. The big Brevoort party is in the projects and the center and the whole. But then because it's kind of festive, pretty much every 2 or 3 blocks, there's a block party where they don't put police horses and just lock the block down. And we walk past this block and we hear this DJ scratching up Caravan's Liquid Liquid. And he's murdering this record. And I'm like, what the hell? Oh no, and the way he's doing, and he's making a mean ass face when he's doing it. I'm like, I looked at the light, I said, that's our DJ. And so when he took a break, I think it might have been me, just like, come here. And his interviews, he said, man, I thought they was gonna beat me up. But, you know, the issue that I'm making when you say that, you know, people had incredible DJs, but they weren't using them and that type of situation. Paul, when we got Paul, anybody that was in the band, we got them for a reason. So sometimes DJs were in groups, but they were kind of just in groups because we rap, we're going to need a DJ. You see what I'm trying to say? It's not like Paul's an integral part of what we were. So there was we handpicked a guy that could do what he does.
Right.
Because we didn't want nobody whack. We needed somebody that was crazy. You know, our legacy is watching Theodore, watching Flash, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So we didn't want nobody that was whack. We wanted our own version of Grandmaster Flash. And that's what we got with Prince Paul. So little did we know that this was a kid that had equipment in this room in Amityville, Long Island, was already putting together beats and learning how to produce and all of those kind of things. So when he came in, it was all of this like stuff that he was submitting, not always songs, but definitely ideas and how to do things. And he had a way, he had a way that he used to come in the studio, and that's how I met De La, because they was his friends and they used to carry his records and stuff. He had a way that he used to come in the studio with a crate of records, and we'd kind of work on something. And then he's like, okay, take a break, take a break. Let me, and he finds, that's where the, and all of that stuff comes from in Sally and all, all of that kind of stuff. He'll figure out, if he's not doing the whole record, which a lot of times he did, but if he's not doing the whole record, he'll figure out kind of what the song needs with a DJ mind, but also as a producer as well.
Okay. Well, definitely a good pick.
Yeah.
Good
Great
pick.
pick.
Now on Stet Troop 88, I was always intrigued because at this time there was, some people did it, but it was rare that rappers would mention their quote unquote government name, real name, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So what made you want to break yours down in there?
Because I say this all the time, man. When we first started doing this, none of us knew that there was this possibility of doing this to keep the lights on. That's not why we even did it. We did it because we loved it. And then records came into play a little later, right? So our first few tours, we all was working day jobs, and we would take leaves of absence and do the tour and come back and work. So that's why I say some people call me Kareem. At work, they call me Glenn. I was on tour last year. This year, I'll do it again. You know what I mean? Because I was still working.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that was the whole issue. It was just like, it's not like we doubted the music. So I don't want it to sound like that, but we just didn't know. Like, it was new. It was brand new. This is frontier stuff. You know what I mean? And we just figuring this out. So, that was the real reason behind that. Like our first few tours were leaves of absence from my job, and I came right back to work.
So did that end after Infogear?
It ended when I got my first publishing check.
When was that?
When I got a publishing deal. It might have been 89, 90, right around in there.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I got a publishing deal, then I was like, oh, I got enough money to quit my job.
And who'd you have your publishing deal with at the time?
Island. It was Island. But I don't know if there was Island Polygram yet. It was Chris Blackwell. It was Island Music.
Is that how a few years later you ended up doing your album with them, your solo album?
No, that was totally, that was just a different thing. The Brooktown record came out of, Kedar and I were partners. He went out to LA, met Kim Bowie that was signed to Island, started managing Freestyle Fellowship, and some kind of way hooked up with Kim to do a label deal. And I honestly, if you look, I was the only artist that ever came out on Brooktown.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Maybe that's why the album is You Could Be a Daddy But Never Daddy-O. There's only one.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So back more closer to the 88, as you're doing Infogear, you're doing Queen Latifah stuff, Cookie Crew. Since this is very early, and obviously Sha Rock was known, Salt and Pepper obviously had gotten really big, Shantae was known, there were people coming out, but what on the label side of things, did you see any difference with the Queen Latifahs, the Cookie Crews getting with different female people?
Nah, I mean, with Latifah, we were label mates. So, you know, we always, I mean, at least I did, probably everybody else did, but, you know, it was Flavor Unit, but, you know, it was really a whole bunch of effort that was going to come out from Mark the 45 King. Tommy was smart enough record man that he started mixing up production with some of his artists. You know, a lot of people was all self-produced, like Naughty was all self-produced, Stet was all self-produced, and he was mixing it up. So he pegged me, you know, for a song or two. We ended up coming up with the pros. With the Cookie Crew, it was a little different because Cookie Crew came, a woman who actually is an incredible filmmaker right now, but at that time she worked for Rush. Her name is Lisa Cortez. And Lisa came up with an idea and she presented it to Russell to say, hey, I know we're managing these groups, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, Eric B. and Rakim, LL Cool J, who's also signed to Def Jam, Stetsasonic, Public Enemy. But why don't we take the producers from those particular bands and begin to get them work on the side? You know, that's a whole nother income stream. And so they created what was known as RPM, Rush Producers Management. And the Cookie Crew came through that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like? Because I know some of that, or you did that stuff with DBC. Was it a big difference doing stuff?
No, I mean, in the beginning, so DBC and Prince Paul are the reason that I'm a producer. I never wanted to be a producer. That was never my, and you know, even now when I make my solo records, I do some records, but like the last couple of records I made, you know, you don't even, I'm not there as a producer because I love just writing and doing my stuff, right? Being a rapper so that I could concentrate on everything. DB used to live uptown in Middletown, New York, but we used to have to practice. So when we had to practice or do anything at the label or whatever, DB would come down on Friday night and spend the night. And when he come down on Friday night, spend the night, he'd come to my crib, set up his equipment at my house. And then when he used to fall asleep, I used to learn how to use his machines. So DB was my first production partner. I never really collaborated too much with Paul besides for the Stetsasonic stuff because he was all the way out in Long Island. So that was a little different. So, yeah, so I mean, it was just me, you know, me and DB just doing stuff. We did a few things together. That wasn't the only thing we did together. It was a full album, though. That was the first, I think Cookie Crew was the first time I did a full album outside of, you know, just working with Stetsasonic for a full album. And that was, you know, that was a lot of fun because, you know, we did a lot, you know, we did some in New York and we did some in London.
Right.
You know, so that was a whole lot of fun.
In the beginning, hip-hop was ruled by the East Coast. Then the West Coast rose to prominence, thanks to gangster rap.
Straight out of Compton, crazy motherfucker named Ice Cube.
Hip-hop changed the world. Gangster rap changed the narrative.
I'm representing for the gangsters all across the world.
And then changed the world again.
Cause I'll come and take your life away.
The history of gangster rap features unheard stories, unseen photos and documents, all with exclusive interviews from the founders and players who shaped gangster rap.
I think a real gangster rapper has to scare you a little bit.
The history of gangster rap written by veteran rap journalist Soren Baker. In stores now.
Yo, what up? This is DJ Quick. Be sure to pick up my homeboy Soren Baker's book, The History of Gangster Rap, if you really want to know what we do.